UFP, the United Federation of Podcasts.
Infinite diversity.
Live long and prosper, and welcome to Infinite Diversity, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on the United Federation of Podcast Network. I'm your host for today, Justin Oser, and joining me are my co-hosts, Brandon Shamatala and Chrissie De Clerck-Szilagyi. How are you today on the holodeck?
It's a very interesting day on the holodeck. There's all sorts of titles falling right in my face.
All right, Brandon, how you doing?
Don't talk to me, I'm pissed off.
That's exactly like the conversation I had an hour ago.
Shut up, I'll kill you. Oh, I can't stay mad at you guys.
No, we love you. All right, so also join with us today is the very prolific author of Star Trek novels and comics, Michael Jan Friedman, or maybe I should say Michael Jan Friedman. Welcome to Infinite Diversity, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you guys doing?
Great. Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. We've had some different authors on, and it's great to just talk to them about some Star Trek episodes. So Let's actually get right into it. And since you're our guest, Michael, tell us what you thought of this episode as initial impressions and kind of what you've thought of Lower Decks as a whole.
This episode, meaning the most recent one?
Yes.
The only one I have yet to see. So I can't speak to that, but I can tell you, Lower Decks as a whole, I really like it.
Well, Michael, this is going to be an interesting podcast because we're going to focus on talking about the most recent episodes.
Oh, God.
We may spoil it for you, possibly.
Okay, that's all right.
But yeah, tell us what you thought of the first 8 episodes then, I'd say.
I really like them. And you can spoil it. It's okay. Don't.
Okay.
I'll
Maybe we'll just try to describe it in really vivid terms, and you can react to how that makes you feel.
Mm-hmm. But the others, I really like them. First of all, they're very funny. And second of all, the characters are great. They're distinctive and compelling. And the episodes are very character driven, which Star Trek is not always. Very often Star Trek is more plot driven, and I enjoy those episodes as well. But this is very character driven. In a way, it reminds me of my Stargazer miniseries, where the character work is sort of more important than the plot, or the jeopardy that the characters are in.
Okay, very interesting that you say that, because I have quite a different opinion. But okay,
different opinions of Lower Decks.
Yes, I've been having quite a few issues with the show overall. Maybe it has to do with my sense of humor, but we'll talk about it. Our listeners have had to go through it with me, maybe in a therapeutic way, for the last 8 weeks. But it's not just about my opinion. But no, it's very interesting to hear what you think about it. And we've had different guests, and they've thought different things about the show. But I'm glad you're enjoying it. So, Brandon, you want to let us know your initial impressions of this episode that Michael is going to learn about now?
I thought this one was really funny. I had a lot of fun watching it. It made me laugh a whole heck of a lot, and there was some really, really fun callbacks to the movies, and I was giggling the whole way through. But I'll tell you that the thing that made me laugh the most, that completely just threw me for a loop because I was just not expecting it in any way, shape, or form, was that final joke with Da Vinci. Right at the end of the episode. Not today! Not on the Da Vinci's watch! Oh my goodness gracious, I howled when that came up. It was just unexpected, it was wonderful. I loved it. I thought it was awesome.
All right, so you really enjoyed this one. I think in contrast to last week where you had some trouble with last week's, right?
Yeah, so like last week's, I still enjoyed it a lot. I just didn't like it because of the remembrance of the Enterprise episode Judgment. It just made me think of that one. This did not remind me of Judgment.
No.
But I mean, even if you listen to that discussion, I think you'll hear that I enjoyed a lot about the episode, right?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's true. So, Chrissy, your thoughts on the episode?
Well, Justin, I'm afraid I enjoyed it as well.
There's nothing to be. Don't feel bad. Don't be afraid if you know how I already feel, which you do. But go ahead.
No, I loved it, and it touched on something that we've heard about in the Star Trek universe. Maybe not on screen, but definitely in the books, about the idea of a play along novel. I don't remember where I read it, and of course this was a movie, but it's the same.
Well, isn't it
in a holodeck?
Isn't it true in author? You're meant to kind of play along with it in Voyager.
Yeah.
So like that kind of idea.
I guess. Or? Yeah, like that kind of idea, but with all of the fanciness and the credits and everything.
Oh, okay.
What it brought to mind, and I don't remember what book this was in, and it's something I've read so long ago. There's a scene where Geordi is talking to somebody about a novel that's just come out, and he says, "Oh, I like to wait until the holodeck version comes out." And so it just made me think of that. I don't know why, because it wasn't like this was based on a book, but...
Oh, yeah, that was a line in a novel? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very random. If anybody knows where that line's from in a novel, that would be fantastic. It'd be hilarious if it was
Actually, I can narrow it down for you. It was not one of mine. So that leaves like...
Okay. I don't have that much connection. All right.
Yeah, I feel like maybe I've read that, but I've read a lot of novels, but not all of them, so... Yeah. Well, maybe one of our listeners
I
will
really
know.
enjoyed it.
Okay, that's good.
Michael, do you have a favorite character so far, or like is there a particular episode that stands out for you so far?
You know, I knew you were going to ask this question, and I was thinking, well, what's the I think maybe Tendi is my favorite. She's so enthusiastic and so like offbeat and unexpected. I think I like her. I mean, I like them all. I like all four of the Lower Decks characters, but I feel like she's the least predictable, and I really like her for that. I like Rutherford. Yeah. I like them all. I think they're good. I think, in fact, I like them better than I expected to, because. I thought, it's broad comedy, and sometimes characters get a little lost in that. But I really, I think it didn't take them long to really define the characters. In fact, if you stack this up against pretty much any other Star Trek series, it suffered the least first few episodes syndrome. Where they're kind of groping around and finding their way, and Spock is emotional and smiles and and gets excited, all that stuff they had to get past in the original series. I feel like these guys hit the ground running faster than anybody, probably. So Tendi, I guess, would be my favorite, but not by much. I like them all.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
We won't hold you to favorites. I'm notorious for not being able to pick favorites, so no worries.
Yeah. I like Tendi a lot. I mean, especially because she goes against the usual stereotype of what we've seen for Orions, particularly Orion women. So to me, that's really interesting. And I want to find out more about like her background, how she got to that place, what brought her Orion Society is like and all that. Yeah. So I think it's very intriguing. So, I mean, she may be my favorite, or maybe Rutherford, but...
Okay, well, Justin, let's jump to you. Tell us why you hate Star Trek.
Oh, boy. Yeah, so as I said, Michael, I've been struggling. I've liked 2 out of the 9 episodes so far. I mean, there have been parts that last week's I loved. That was my favorite. I laughed like practically throughout it. I thought it was just hilarious what they were doing. For this week, okay, so I think I knew from the previews that this would be an episode where it's basically like a kind of a holodeck movie. But anyway, like for my general impression, like going into this episode, first, I don't know, just like the whole thing for me, what tends to make something funny for me is when I'm surprised by something, right? And as soon as I could tell that they were going for kind of a spoof of movies, and yeah, they referenced lots of Star Trek movies. I think I counted The Motion Picture and Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock and Undiscovered Country and Generations and '09. Like, they referenced a lot of movies, right? But for me, each thing that they did there to reference the movies seemed like, I don't know, like an obvious choice, and it didn't take me by surprise. So I was like, oh, here's what they're doing. And I had a serious problem in this episode with how they were going about things for Mariner's therapy and how much they were effectively saying, like, professional therapy is trash and let's, have our own fantasy on the holodeck and we can work things out like that. So there were some serious issues. And I've had this with some other episodes with the message that it's sending. I know it's a comedy. I know it's animated, but I can't help myself when I'm watching something like this to think of it in a Star Trek context and think about the kind of messages it's sending. There was one joke that I laughed at, and I'll mention it in case like we don't get to it. I thought, like, on the bridge of Vindicta's ship, where there's this guy Shempo that's like this caricature of Boimler. I thought that was hilarious. That was the only time I laughed during the episode. So I'm sure we'll get into it, but I had trouble with this one as well. So 3 against 1. Okay, so let's go right into it. Let's talk about the teaser first. I know we often don't talk about like the teaser specifically, but in this one, you see Mariner on a planet. She's kind of, I guess, helping these lizard people that have been oppressed by these kind of rat-like people that are eating them, and she feels like she's found a solution to, what is it, like overthrow their government. There's like a civil war that starts or something like that. And
were those Justin? Were those the Antikins?
Was it the Antikins?
I think it was. Like, so.
Yes, it was.
Lonely Among Us, season 1 of Next Generation. They looked like the Antikins to me.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So I thought that was funny.
And Marco Lamo played one of those Antikins, right?
Yeah, back in the day.
It was like his first Star Trek appearance.
Okay, so I want to jump in on this one here because I had a big problem with the intro, because the way that it started, I thought they must be showing us the thing that happened however many years ago. Because this did not feel like Mariner now. This did not feel like Mariner now. When she's all like, what did she say? She's going to be pumped that I sorted out injustice, or that I rooted out injustice. Sorry, I got bad writing here.
Yeah, how could she expect that?
Exactly. How could she expect that? Why would she want to do that? Like, none of that does not make sense, and that does not ring true for her character.
Except in the first episode, right? In that first episode, wasn't she handing out farm implements?
Yeah, and she was doing it in secret.
Yes.
And so this one here, she comes in, and they're
she's kind of openly doing it, right?
She's helping them tear down the Confederate statues from Antica.
in a way.
Yeah. And then she's like, so she's eliminated it so that these lizards aren't food anymore for the Antikins. And then she's like, oh, look, here's my captain. She's going to be so proud of me. I don't understand why she would think that for even a fraction of a second. I realize that she doesn't agree with the Starfleet rules, but what she's doing is clearly and obviously wrong. And I do not understand how she could even think that for a second. Does not make any sense whatsoever.
If that was supposed to be the Antikins and the Seleia, Prime Directive doesn't apply. But
no, it does.
That undermines the beginning of the show.
Hold on. Prime Directive does apply whenever you are meddling in the internal kind of workings of a society, whether they're warp capable or not. So it does apply. Yes, no, it does. But I mean, like a prominent example of that is, I think it's the Redemption 2-parter where Picard's like, I'm not going to participate in this Klingon civil war, right? So it's whether they're warp capable or not, but she's breaking the Prime Directive. But then also, like, her mother, Captain Freeman, comes down and she's like, man, you screwed this up. Why didn't you tell me? Right? Like, which makes sense. And then also after that, she's like, you guys want some food replicators? All right. And they're like, oh, sure. That's great. Problem solved. Yeah. It's like solved so quickly. And she doesn't even need to do this. So I was very puzzled by the opener. So
did any of you guys think that this was going to be the backstory, that this was like a flashback when it started?
No, okay. I didn't think it was a flashback. I thought it was now, which confused me. So
now that you've said that would have made sense. But it didn't occur to me
like the thing that you're talking about, the thing that would have gotten her demoted
originally,
right?
yeah.
Originally, yeah, that would have made sense.
I don't know. And so then they send her to therapy. And so I don't get that. I don't think that they're making a comment in the episode that therapy is bad or whatever. I mean, there are people who have the opinion that therapy is not good. She makes the joke, this is the 80s and we don't need therapy because, that's what people said about Troy on Next Generation back in our 80s, right? When they had the show, when they had Next Generation airing. But, she doesn't want to do therapy. And there's people who don't want to do therapy. And the problem with that, though, is Mariner is such a trashy character in this episode. She's terrible. She is absolutely atrocious in this episode. The way that she's talking and treating the captain in that opening sequence is insane. And this is the problem that I'm having with the show, while I love it, is the fact that that this is a mother-daughter team is wrong, and she should not be under her captain's under the command of her parent. And she's right. She says in the episode later on, if it wasn't for you, I would be kicked out of Starfleet. And I mean, I got so many problems with the Mariner character in this episode, and it's like I at the end of the episode when she's supposedly cured because of therapy, I don't expect this to carry on to next week. I expect her to just keep treating people like garbage and making bad judgment decisions and just skating by Starfleet,
I want to say a couple of things, though. So, I think no matter what you might think of therapy, right? I think one of the messages of the episode that I get from it is basically, if you have a serious problem, there's ways you can work it out yourself, and you can work it out in this fantasy sequence, whatever, which is pretty brutal. There's a lot of people she kills in this holodeck movie, but I think what it's saying is almost like you don't need professional help. But listeners, if you're having mental health issues, please seek professional help. Don't go into a fantasy and think it'll be helpful. I mean, that's the big problem I had with it. But okay, so we're getting into the movie, so maybe for your benefit, Michael, I'll talk about it a little bit more. So there's this teaser, right, where they're on this planet and Mariner's like, I've saved these people, and just didn't tell the captain, and the captain's really unhappy about that and says, I'm not going to throw you in the brig like you want to. I'm going to send you to therapy. And then she ends up going to this therapist, who they keep making fun of him because he makes all kinds of food references, but it's not being very helpful for her. But then after that, we find out that Boimler has this holodeck program with all of the bridge crew, and he's going to find out, how to do well in his interview for an advanced diplomacy course, right? First of all, I don't know. I found it kind of problematic that he's simulating all of these real characters, because I think that's been a problem since Hollow Pursuits. But anyway, so but then after that, Mariner says, oh, let me take over your program. This is how I'll get therapy. And she basically concocts this in a few seconds, which is kind of funny. But she quickly concocts this movie that has her as this character, Vindicta, which is kind of like a Khan-like character that's out for revenge against Freeman. And there's all of this stuff that happens where, she boards the ship with her crew, and they're killing a lot of people. And the whole point of it is for Mariner to basically murder the Hollow captain, that's her mother, Captain Freeman. But then I think in the end, a version of herself that's a holodeck character kind of tells her that, wait, she really is into this stuff. I mean, I'm going over it really quickly, but Brendan, Chrissie, does that kind of go over what happens in that part?
Boimler takes everybody's personal logs to make their characters as accurate as possible on the holodeck.
He should be severely disciplined for that.
And so what we're supposed to believe by the end of this episode is that Mariner's actually a really caring person who loves her mom and loves Starfleet and loves working on the ship. And she just has this grand facade of being a piece of trash because, she's expected. People just expect her to be a piece of trash, so she's just going to be a piece of trash. And I'm sorry, but I mean, that's ridiculous, okay? That is complete nonsense. And as fun as I think this episode is, and again, I thought this episode was a lot of fun, we got to talk about this like a Star Trek episode because, hey, guess what? It's a Star Trek episode. So, and I had a lot of issues with this. I don't have a problem with Boimler creating the characters. He went overboard in a comedic way, and he should not have grabbed personal logs of everybody. But I don't have a problem with him recreating everybody on the bridge because it's no different than any of the simulated scenarios that we see where they grab crew members. right? And Boimler went completely overboard on what he did. But I mean, we saw it in the Next Generation episode, Thine Own Self, right? When Troy's doing her command school training. We saw it earlier in Lower Decks when...
I mean, I guess it depends on how you use it, right?
That's right.
Like,
Boimler wasn't abusing it. Mariner completely abused it.
Mariner is abusing it, yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I think
Boimler
that's a lot of...
his access.
His access to the personal logs. And how did he even get that access as an ensign? But anyway. But Michael, you've been hearing us talk about this. Like, any thoughts on some of what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think I'm going to see it.
Didn't mean to shut you out there.
I think, what I'm hearing is you're pointing out some of the logical inconsistencies and maybe character inconsistencies. You can look at anything really, but a Star Trek episode, we'll say, in a couple of different ways. You can look at it in terms of what's wrong with it, or you can look at it in terms of what's right with it. You're always going to be able to find a couple or maybe many inconsistencies. But I find that in this cool moments make up for the little inconsistencies. And there certainly are. I'll grant you there are some. For instance, in the episode with the farm, right, where Boimler kind of becomes out of phase, right, and they're sending him to the farm. There were, first of all, the notion that there are all these crewmen who've been, turned into weird things, here and there across the Star Trek universe. It's hilarious that there are so many of them, and among them are people in that Pike chair, right, and the visual of these people. To me, that was hilarious. It was hilarious. Like, how often does that happen? I mean, you would think if it happened once, that would be enough, right? But no, it's happened again and again.
And they haven't improved on the technology of the chair yet.
It's a big
chair is still binary communication.
So, Michael, I totally hear what you're saying, and that tends to be my approach for Star Trek. Like, let me focus on what I really like about it, which has meant I've probably been able to overlook some things in, let's say, Discovery and Picard, because I love those shows and the seasons that they've had. My problem with Lower Decks is I'm struggling to find a few things that I like about certain episodes. Like this one, I liked like one thing that was going on, and the rest of it, I'm like, I have a big problem with the rest of it. So I try to be positive, and I've basically liked, all of the new Star Trek stuff that's come out since 2009, with a couple exceptions. But I've been like really positive about it. But this is the one that I've really struggled with. Like, this is the only Star Trek show where we've gotten this far into a first season, and I haven't liked most of it, so.
Yeah, see, I had more trouble with the Abrams movies, frankly, than I did with this. One thing this doesn't seem to do is it's not arrogant. It doesn't say, yeah, all that other stuff, we're much more important. We're a much more authentic Star Trek voice, and all that other stuff, don't pay attention to it. They're not rewriting history the way those movies did. That bothered me. This is kind of they're kind of weaving their way in between the in and out of the canon, but without reinterpreting it.
I want to come to my own defense here for a second, Michael, before we go too far. So again, I really enjoy this show, and I think it is a lot of fun, and I'm laughing all the time. There's only been one episode that I was like not really liked so far, But when we do talk about it, we do talk about it like it's Star Trek. And for me, and the point of view that I take on this is when I look at it through a just a fun lens, I can enjoy it and have fun. But when I look at it through a Star Trek lens, I find it extremely frustrating that that we're supposed to accept that there's a Starfleet ship with this many incompetent crew. So it's like it's two different conversations that I'm having, right? So on one hand, I do really enjoy this show a lot. I just wanted to kind of come to my own defense on this one here. So
yeah.
So.
Well, but I don't know that you can. I mean, I suppose you can criticize it on the basis of it being a Star Trek show and what makes sense. But I think, it is animated, and right away you kind of have to look at it and go, animated? It's animated? Nobody really looks like this. Mm-hmm. So once you get past that, it's kind of hard to hold it accountable in the same ways that you would hold something else accountable. I mean, you can do it. It's just it may be futile.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's interesting you say that, because I can totally get past the suspension of disbelief for it being animated. And the original animated series from the 70s is one of my favorite things in Star Trek. I thought they actually told really good stories. It's really underrated. So I can get past that. For me, it doesn't even necessarily have to do with like a logical inconsistency. For me, I'm always looking at the message that it's sending. And for me, I've really disagreed with a lot of the messages that I feel that they're sending. And if that's the case, it makes it harder for me to laugh at it. And also, there's quite a lot of violence in this show that's supposed to be funny. And for me, it's my personal thing. I know people are different, but when there's violence, I'm not going to laugh, because I have such a suspension of disbelief that I feel it as if it's actually happening. So that's maybe my own issue, but that's why I've been having trouble with it, is because I'm seeing things where I'm like, I can't find this funny, because like this episode, there's some times where, Mariner, I know it's to holodeck characters, but she's like disintegrating people like really brutally. And I kind of feel that, and I have to look away from the screen, which sounds silly because it's animated and it's comedy, but for me, they're doing things that I don't find funny, and if it's supposed to be a comedy, I'm just having real trouble with that. So that's my own thing.
I will say that there is a limit, to how far they can go, even in a comedy. Mm-hmm. When they had Boimler's friend, I think friend from the academy, right? Yeah. On the ship, and he was an abysmal person, right? How did he, even in an animated Star Trek episode, how are we supposed to take him seriously as a Star Trek crewman? How did he ever get that far?
That guy needs some professional mental health services, because he's like, oh, why don't I just plug this thing into my brain? What? Well,
it's a good thing he transferred to a ship with such an experienced counselor as the Titan.
Yeah, and they are going to get rid of him too. So,
well, they demoted him.
He rubbed me the wrong way. Like I said, okay, I know it's a comedy, but I don't think this character would ever get assigned to a ship.
No.
Yeah.
So, Chrissy?
One of the things that makes Star Trek, I don't want to say real Star Trek because I hate that, but
don't be such a gatekeeper.
One of the things that I think is consistent with, I am. It's my gate of philosophy. One of the things that makes Star Trek to me is that it makes you think, okay? And sometimes there's a very obvious moral, as they say, bonk bonk on the head, don't hate people because the black half of their face is on the other side of their face. Fine. Sometimes it's a little more thoughtful. And I think this one was that, given the chance to really dig into it. I think this one really was amidst everything else. And there certainly is a lesson of don't work with family. So I think we get that from the whole series. But there is this question of what is the appropriate use of the holodeck?
Yes.
And when is it too far? So it's okay to simulate Starfleet officers for training simulations. I can see where that might actually be in whatever contracts they sign. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's not being used in a quote unquote inappropriate way, right? But then we have, the issue of how Barclay was using the holodeck, right? And Boimler's using the holodeck for seemingly a training exercise, but he's also manipulated it with the personal logs, and that makes it a little more than a little untoward. But at the same time, you can say, all right, he's trying to prep himself for an interview.
But he, like, the problem though is he is so eager to please the captain and to get promoted that he's willing to violate people's privacy. So he's taking it too far in that way. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I'm not disputing that. If he had just said, okay, I'm going to create a training simulation to work with, how I should deal with diplomacy.
Yeah, based on what the computer knows of people's public behavior, right? Yeah.
Right. So then we were talking about this earlier, and actually, Michael, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, obviously, but of course. We were talking about this earlier of, is it more troublesome for a person to recreate... I thought of it as people they know, but we could expand that into people they don't necessarily know. Is it more of a problem to create them for sex or for murder or violence and murder? Because if you think about Barclay's programs and Hollow Pursuits, that there is some logical conclusion to some of what was going on there. Okay. Yes. Or at least maybe that's where I go. I have a dirty mind.
I think Barclay would be happy to use one of Quark's Hollow Suites. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but the thing is, if it's Vulcan Love Slave, that's not a real person. I mean, we assume it's not a real person.
Before you go too far, Chrissy, I think a better example than Hollow Pursuits, there's two different things. I think the better example for what Boimler did would be Booby Trap. Okay? Because when Geordi created Leah Brahms for Booby Trap, he didn't intend to develop a relationship with her, right? He intended to get as close a detail as he could to her so that he could work with her because she's the person who created the most parts of the Enterprise, right? And then that created problems later on because it didn't do a proper job. Now, we're supposed to be told that this is doing a proper job and this is doing a very accurate job of making the crew members be as close to they really are based on their personal records. So I think that Booby Trap is probably a more apt comparison to this. I don't know. What do you think?
For what Boimler did, yes, but just as the general, the overall question, non-specific, I guess.
See, I have a tough time with that. Like, because the holodeck is fantasy and it's all fantasy, okay? And so, like, I guess I might go a little bit, like, crude in my description here, right? But it's like, people have their own fantasies in their head, right? Whether they're sexual fantasies or, like, homicidal fantasies or whatever, like, like, or who has not?
There are
had
other
a
fantasies
fantasy?
Besides those two, but
are there? I don't know which one.
Yeah, you could have fantasy of like winning a race or being successful at your job. Maybe it doesn't, but some people would be into that. But anyway, it's not just those two things, hopefully.
Right, but what I mean by this is...
I chose those as very particular.
Because they have
morally offensive
potential for
things,
abuse,
But who hasn't had the fantasy of, like, telling their boss off at their job at some point in their life? Right?
Telling them off, yes. Murdering them? No, I have never had that fantasy.
No, I understand that too. But I'm just saying that, like, I don't know. I don't have fantasies of murdering people, whatever, right? So, personally, I would think that the fantasy of murdering people would be worse than the fantasy of having sex with people. But I guess that's just me and my values. I don't know. Because you can have the thought of killing somebody and you can have the thought of having sex with somebody, right? And they're very different things. I don't know, but...
Okay, can I put a wrench in this? Because I had a thought, right? So in Star Trek, we have seen it is possible to create what is or seems like a sentient hologram. Moriarty, the Doctor, Vic Fontaine, whatever. How do we know... yeah, but I'm being serious here. How do we know, and what do they have in place to make sure that doesn't happen, and that you haven't just created some sentient beings that you're murdering, right? Like, that popped into my head, and I was like, that could be a big, big problem.
Yes,
because it seems like it's easy.
It
seems like it's easy for the computer to create sentient holograms somehow
at random. So
yeah, no, that's an excellent point. Somebody brought that up in the Twitter feed too. of my poll on this, but along those lines, this just occurred to me, and I don't know why I didn't think of it before. Was what Odo and Vic did to help him be able to romance Kira wrong?
Oh, I think possibly.
Oh. When a chill filled the room.
Yeah, but
yeah, the ends were something that people wanted there, so they're like, oh no, it's okay. Because his intention
You're not necessarily wrong, Chrissy. I mean, like,
no.
it is a question of, like, what is okay for the holodeck to be used for? And I don't know. Like, I made the joke in the previous episodes, like, the second program I'm running after I'm taught how to use it is some type of sex program, because that's who I am, right? So, like, you know, what can the holodeck be used for? And I mean, I don't know. Like, this is all moral questions that, I mean, I think they should have laws in place for in that time period, right? So
I mean, they should have something besides safety protocols that's something like, I don't know, a privacy or fair use protocol, or like something in the holodeck where it's like, I'm sorry, I can't execute that for you. That's not right. Or I don't know what. But what do you think about all? Oh, go ahead, Chrissy.
I was just going to say, so this was the bigger moral question that I was getting at, the bigger thought-provoking question that makes me feel like this is just as much quote-unquote real Star Trek as any other. So
no, it leads to some very thought-provoking questions for sure.
Yeah, and it's what when I tell my students that they don't like discussion questions that don't necessarily have a right answer. The big questions in life, all in caps. And I like it when it's not always just like, okay, here's the answer. Get on with your life.
Yeah.
You have to wonder, now that we've raised this thorny question, you have to wonder how far to take it. Because, it's one thing if you're talking about Kira or Troy, in being recreated in the holodeck for whatever purpose, nefarious or otherwise. But what if it's a chair? Does that chair have rights? We've seen, just in this series, we've seen Badgie. Right.
Yeah.
Badgie was a badge. Was not modeled after a person. It wasn't creepy in that sense, but it's a badge.
Just in
and
other
the badge
senses.
became animated. We've actually seen that anything can become animated, and anthropomorphized. So maybe anything that you have in the holodeck is subject to question along those lines.
We don't know how these things become sentient. I mean, like in Elementary Dear Data, Moriarty effectively becomes sentient because Geordi's like, give me somebody who can defeat Data, and the computer's like, all right, I know how to do that. Okay. I'll just make it, this supervillain and make them sentient. And for Vic Fontaine, we're told this guy Felix, who's a great programmer, just did it, right? Like there's some magic formula to make these things sentient, and what is preventing people from doing that, right? And from committing murder or rape or whatever, right? Like it's crazy to think about.
If I remember correctly with Vic, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, okay, it wasn't so much that Felix made him sentient. It was that Felix made sure that he knew what he was in the context. He knew he was a hologram. He knew he was, just a bunch of light bulb. I think he calls himself. And then I think he does come to sentience in a way.
See that,
but I don't know if he's like the doctor.
But that self-awareness is one of the important things in sentience.
Oh, agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah. I don't know. It's tough because if I create a program and use it for whatever means I want to use it for, and nobody ever finds out, how different is that from a person's mental fantasies? I don't know. How different is that? I don't know. I don't have that answer.
Nothing.
Well, it has a manifestation out in the world, and it's possible that, it's being done to a sentient being. That's how it's different. If it's in your head, clearly there's nobody that's going to be harmed by that, I think, if it just stays within your head.
But if it's in a hologram, then nobody's going to be harmed by it either, because it's just a holodeck.
Depends.
So,
assuming it doesn't become sentient.
Which these things are coming sentient left and right. I mean, for sure, yes. But then what's the problem with it then? Is it the problem with, so I don't know,
That's like saying, what's the problem with
No, just a second. Let me finish here. So, like, is the problem that I'm harming the hologram, or is the problem that I'm harming the hologram that looks like Chrissie, or that looks like Justin, or that looks like Michael? So,
No, the essential problem is that you'd be harming a sentient being, right? Just like, what's the essential problem with, real examples on Earth where people are enslaved? It's because a sentient being is having their rights violated,
So does then that mean we can't use the hologram for training programs either? Because you're therefore creating
I think you couldn't if they're sentient. Maybe they have different versions anyway.
Let's, for the sake of argument, let's assume not sentient. Getting back to where we were.
Not sentient, then you can. Then I think
Mariner,
you can do whatever you want.
Well, but don't forget, they're modeled after someone, right?
Yeah.
So even if the Troy simulation isn't sentient, doesn't ever become sentient, there's always Troy. What happens if Troy stumbles onto this? Are we violating possibly her rights as well?
Yeah.
Think of it like if somebody wrote an erotic story in which you were the main character and you found it, how would you feel?
Right. But would they be violating your rights? That's the question.
Or a story where they murdered you, I guess, just to go either way.
I guess it depends.
Because I agree with you 100%. If they're sentient, then that's an entirely different issue.
Right. But which I don't get the impression that the characters in this episode are sentient. I don't get
that impression at all, but it brought the thought up in my mind, like, what's to prevent someone from making them sentient beings and then killing them?
A line of coding. And sometimes that line of coding gets there accidentally.
Well,
sometimes it gets there on purpose. So
No, but I'm saying that it has the potential to do that, for you to create beings just to kill them off. Yeah. So anyway, wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this is getting into the video game question in the 90s. Is this numbing people to violence? And I don't think that's the case. I think the issue is more how it might bleed into your real life.
To be honest, I had a bigger issue with this episode sending the message that getting professional mental help is not a good thing than seeing the violence, because I think people can clearly separate out, like, this is a holodeck within animation, like, I can put that in a separate category, but people do get messages from what they watch. And I think in this case, it's, I don't know, it feels more subtle than just like, oh, I'm getting a nerd to violence. I don't know.
I don't see that message, what you're saying there, I don't see that in this episode. I don't think that they're knocking therapy at all.
I see that he's a bad therapist.
He's probably just a bad therapist.
That bad therapy is bad. Sorry.
There's a part of this episode, though, that I'm even more concerned with, right? That I think is even worse. And it actually really upset me and bothered me in this episode. And that is the way that Tendi was made to feel in this episode. I was really upset by this. So in this, Tendi is just the Orion slave criminal, right?
Yeah.
Because Orions are pirates and whatnot. And there's a couple, like, Tendi is like kind of, you can tell right off the bat that she's kind of upset by that. But later on, as the episode goes on, and Mariner is starting to get more and more violent on the holodeck, Tendi is becoming more and more uncomfortable to the point where she brings it up. And she actually is like, look, not all Orions are pirates and slaves and whatnot. And then they make the joke, there's even people who haven't been pirates for 5 years, right? Because this is a comedy. Okay. But she's very upset to the point where she leaves the holodeck program because of the way that Mariner has made her feel, because of the dark path that this holodeck program has taken, right? Like, Tendi, Rutherford, and Boimler, I believe, are good-hearted people. They are good-hearted people. They want to be in Starfleet. And Mariner, I do not get the impression that she is, for the most part, good-hearted. Yes, she does good-hearted things. Go back to the first episode when she wanted to bypass the Starfleet rules so that she could get those people farm equipment. But I mean, in this episode, she's completely disregarding her friends and how she's making them feel just so she can murder a holodeck representation of her mother.
I think that's absolutely true. I felt the same way as Tendi. I was like, this has gone like too far, because I think that was the scene where like, Mariner kills a bunch of people in I guess their equivalent of 10 forward, and like blood splatters on the walls, and like Shax's ear comes off, and it's like,
yeah,
whoa,
she's like, here,
okay.
take this earring.
That's the break.
But his
She's
ear
like,
is still in it.
Yeah.
Right?
Jeez.
But not only that, at the end, when Tendi comes back and she's like, oh, that's okay, because Orions are just pirates. We are just, you know, your total racist stereotype of us. It's good. It's okay.
You know, it's interesting, as an aside, the whole notion that Orions are pirates, I believe, comes from the first animated series.
Yeah.
And Howie Weinstein's episode, The Pirates of Orion.
Mm-hmm.
Up until then, I don't think there was any...
Well, there was
I
the
don't think
cage,
so.
right?
I
What
don't
we had in the
think
cage.
they were called pirates.
But they didn't call them
Yeah, but
pirates.
there's just a green sexy girl.
Traders and whatnots. But
Interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was really upset and bothered by that whole thing because
like if you're a good friend, you'd be like, okay, I'm really sorry. Let's end this right now. Like, I don't need to put you through this. But she didn't. She went like even further with it. So I totally hear what you're saying,
but
Brendan.
the joke at the end even bothered me even more as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we are just that racist stereotype. It's okay.
Just not me. I'm the one person that isn't like that, is basically what she was saying,
like,
right?
insert anything from Earth. Insert anything from Earth. Okay?
Yeah.
You know, Muslims, black people, Jewish people. Like, just insert anything in there and be like, that's okay. You know what? You're right. Most of us are like that, but I'm not. Oh my goodness,
Right.
that bothered me so much. I'm like livid by that joke.
Wow.
I will say, there were sitcoms in the 90s and the early aughts that traded right on that.
Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and it was okay then. And so I think we might be seeing, not that it was okay then, let me rephrase that. It was not.
So what was okay in the
problematic
1980s
then.
is now okay in the 2380s. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, I was just thinking, I mean, Seinfeld's
Totally.
full of Jewish
Like,
jokes,
and
you know?
I watched this stuff that at the time I thought was funny, and I'm horrified to look back at it and be like, wow, we were laughing at that then, right? And now I feel like we know better. Hopefully I also have the excuse that I was a kid, but but like also like things have changed in how we think about things, and maybe we wouldn't have thought of it that way if it was 30 or 40 years ago. But I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, rewatch The Nanny.
I still haven't had a single
All the
watch
Jewish
of the Nanny,
jokes.
so I'll be okay if I
Yeah,
don't.
I haven't either.
Oh,
But
Okay, yeah, you're good.
so let's go. I know we've gone off into a lot of really great places, but I want to talk about one thing that I really loved. I loved Rutherford's like enthusiasm for Billups as his commanding officer, and they love to like fix these things together. That was my favorite part of the episode, because I was like, I love that Rutherford is supposed to be like effectively Mariner's, you know, bionic killer, and he just goes off and tells Billups like, I love what you do, let's save the ship, and he saves everybody. So I just want to say that part was perfect for me. I love it.
You know why? Why? Because Rutherford's a good-hearted person.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, he was like, I don't care if this is a simulation, like, I want to save all the people on the ship. And Mariner's like, this is a simulation, I want to kill my mother.
Yeah.
It does touch on what I was talking about before we started watching this, about whether or not the comedy is mean.
Yeah.
You know, the comedy, you know, Rutherford going and you think he's going to be mad at his boss, but then he tells him how much he loves him, which has happened every freaking
happened a lot.
episode. We can get rid of that anytime, but, you know, in context. But the idea that he's just... that it's funny because you think he's going to be mad and tell him off, and then he doesn't.
By this point, I know
and
he's
so it's
not
not
going
mean.
to.
It's
Yeah,
good-hearted,
exactly.
Yeah.
as you said, Brent.
I love Rutherford and Tendi. You know what? I don't like Boimler, and I hate Mariner. I'm at that point now. I just hate Mariner. I'll just say it on the podcast. I hate her. She's a terrible character. I hate her.
Brandon, I
Okay.
can see you making up a holodeck program of Mariner right now.
I'm gonna murder her.
To murder Mariner?
Murder
Oh, boy.
Mariner. So
Wow.
It's a fictional character. There you go.
All right. So one thing I think that we do need to talk about is the ending.
not today. Not on the Da Vinci's watch.
Oh no, yeah, I know you love that. Not the very, very ending, but the kind of ending before that. So okay, they've gone through this. Mariner is all cool. She's fine. She loves Starfleet. She's going to go and hang out at the warp core with Tendi and Rutherford, right? So, but then after that, I think Boimler is back in the holodeck and he wants to rerun a bit of the program. And it kind of goes on with the movie, and he finds out that that Freeman is Mariner's mother, which confirms that other people on the ship didn't know it. I'll have to tell you, I had a big problem with this because I was just like, what am I supposed to feel about this? We've known since episode 1. I wish they had not told the audience until this moment, and then it would be like, oh,
Yeah.
so that's what's going on, right? So anyway, I was like, what am I supposed to think? This is like a big shocker that'll lead into the season finale. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
So when it was revealed to me, I'm just like, oh, so nobody knew?
So nobody knew. All right.
Okay.
And there's some deep dark secret that we're gonna find out. Apparently, I don't know.
I don't know why. Like, okay, you're right. They never told us that nobody knew, but they also never told us that nobody knew. Right?
Yeah. But I think we assumed that nobody.
What would have been better and funnier is if Boimler found out and said, "What?" And everybody said, "Yeah, you didn't know that."
Oh right, yeah.
That would have been
hilarious.
Yes.
Like nobody told me. Yeah.
Maybe that'll happen yet because he hasn't actually.
Yeah,
talked
because
to
so he
anybody.
found out in the program because he goes back in the program, and in the program, the fake Mariner sacrifices herself to save the crew, and then they have a funeral for the fake Mariner, and at the fake funeral, they reveal that because remember, we really deep down, based on her logs, Mariner actually does care about everybody. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think everybody else doesn't know because I mean also if there's supposed to be perfect representations at the end of it, it's like all right, for the hollow characters, Mariner's dead, and I want to let you know. It's like I think everybody doesn't know. So anyway, I don't know where it's leading to next week, but I thought like as a reveal, it's kind of a weak reveal that we already knew a long time ago. But anyway,
yeah, I was like, okay, now
Other
he
thoughts?
knows. Now what? Okay. And again, I think that again, what I said several episodes ago, next week's episode is we're supposed to turn our feelings around for Mariner, and that happened this week, right? So that's what I thought it was going to be the season finale. But now we're supposed to actually believe that no, she really is a good-hearted person inside, and I'm like, no. And so I guess our reveal next week is everybody's going to find out that she's the daughter, and how is that going to change our interpretation?
I guess then they'll get into the background of how this happened and why nobody's supposed to know.
Yeah, we're going to
but
find
I don't
out
know.
next week, I think, what happened to make her originally demoted. So
Go ahead, Chrissy.
I'm going to call this. She's from the mirror universe.
no, because her eyes aren't sensitive. And
hilarious.
remember, that's been true the whole time. They always incorporated that, and that was not a retcon in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, that's a plug for Discovery in 2 weeks that we'll be talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, just wanted to mention the ending. Let's go into final thoughts. So Brandon, you want to go first?
Yeah, for sure. Again, as much as I'm sitting here, banging on this episode and, slaughtering at a painful death from my point of view, this episode was really funny and it was a lot of fun. Okay, so I laughed a lot. I loved the jokes. I loved the James Horner type music. I loved Shempo when she kills Shempo. There was so many wonderful things in this, and I was laughing
Lens
the whole
flares.
time. The lens flares,
Yes.
the spinning, the mockery of the motion picture view of
I
the
didn't like that they
Enterprise.
mocked that, but that's me.
I think it's funny. I thought it was funny. They go
Okay.
on for this long
I didn't read that as
I read it as
circumnavigating
mockery.
the ship and whatnot.
Come on, because at the end they're like spinning around like crazy on the ship. Anyway, but okay, so it is interesting because you have the dichotomy of you're laughing a lot, but you have serious issues of like what's actually in the plot, right?
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
And we need more Da Vinci.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go for that.
Okay.
So Michael,
Chrissy?
it's
go
the Da Vinci. I don't know how much Voyager you watched, but in season 4 of Voyager, we get Da Vinci for a few episodes as a holograph character.
Oh,
and
I
it's that
see.
same Da
Oh,
Vinci,
okay.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah. So.
It's the same one, but he has a gun and likes to shoot things.
Yeah, they're clay shooting.
Well, they were
Yeah,
shooting
they're shooting
I
Skeet
know.
at the beginning, and then he just comes back at the end and blows Mariner's. I don't know how she became a holographic character at the end, but whatever. Blows her away with a shotgun, and says, "Not at today, not on a Da Vinci's watch." So
Yeah.
awesome, perfect joke,
Chrissy?
perfect
Final thoughts?
ending to the episode.
Is it though? It's making fun of how Italian people speak. But anyway, Chrissy.
As the resident Italian, I'll say that's fine.
Well, I'm half
final thoughts.
Italian, and I'll say it's not fine.
Chrissy says it's
We'll split
okay.
it there.
Most Italians are like that, but not her.
Wait, Italians are pirates?
Exactly.
What's
Anyway,
going
Chris-
on here?
No, just the way that he was talking with the "not today."
Yeah.
Sometimes they are, and historically speaking, but that's another issue. Right. What are my final thoughts? This one, it made me think more than any of the other episodes of this series has made me think. So, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 for that. And yeah, there's some troubling stuff here, but I guess if people see it, particularly the thing with Tendi, if people see it and say, wow, that's not appropriate, then maybe they'll apply it to their own life.
Okay.
I guess that's a little bit optimistic of me. I'm not usually that optimistic. Listeners are kind of like asking what the hell's going on right now. But, I'm looking forward to next week. I want to see hijinks ensue with how Boimler works this out with everybody.
Okay. So I'll just give my final thoughts. So I'm sure, as you know, listeners, I had trouble with this one, didn't laugh very much. But I am thankful we had a really interesting kind of philosophical discussion about the holodeck and the appropriate ways to use it. So I appreciate that. You guys make it worth it because I wasn't enjoying the episode. So like going into next week, I'm like, I hope I like it, but I'm probably looking more forward to Discovery, but that's just me. So anyway, I think it's great that we had this discussion about it. And Michael, maybe we can get a few final thoughts from you about Lower Decks and what we've talked about.
These are my final thoughts.
For now.
My wife is going to be so pissed. No. Oh my God. All right. Well,
just for today.
For today. Even for today, she'll be pissed off. Let's see. Yeah, I as I said, I like the series. And I look for those big moments. It's not to say that it's flawless. I mean, it's not flawless. In fact, I think after this discussion, I'll be looking at it much more critically. But I really like what they've done, and again, it's happened. They've hit their stride in a very short amount of time. You could even argue within the bounds of the first episode.
Yeah,
they pretty much hit their stride. Whereas, think about how long it took Next Generation to do that, or Voyager, or even Deep Space Nine. It takes a while, and they've kind of gotten up to speed very quickly. So I give them high marks for that. But I'm curious. I'm gonna look at this episode very critically and see if I come to some of those same conclusions.
Yeah, you'll have to let us know what you think of it, or if we've ruined it for you. So Michael, it's been really wonderful having you on the show today. Thank you for joining us for the discussion. And let's just close out by saying, let our listeners know where they can find you online, and if there's any kind of current and upcoming work you'd like to let them know about.
Sure. Well, they can find me at michaeljanfriedman.net, because some stinker took michaeljanfriedman.com. And
a holodeck character, probably.
Yeah, right. And they can also find me at crazy8press.com, where I reside with my colleagues in the asylum that is Crazy 8 Press. It's our independent imprint. And also I do Kickstarters from time to time, so they can look for those.
It's an audio-only podcast, but tell us about your background.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, how I got started and stuff?
No, behind you.
What's behind you?
My image.
Book,
this
right?
background. Oh, that one. Yeah, this is a detail from the cover of my next book. It's a short story collection called The Immigrant and Other Tales. And The Immigrant is a sort of a ghost story that takes place in the Progressive era, so roughly 100 years ago. And it's about things that take place in a settlement house, and it's kind of fun. And then there are superhero stories and fantasies and science fiction stories in there as well. And my next book will be a continuation of my Aslan Mashla Kalua 21st Century Aztec Empire Gumshoe series.
Oh, wow.
Which, yeah, right. So there's a book out in that series now, and I'll be writing the second one for release. We'll kickstart it in a couple of months, and we'll release it around summer of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks for asking.
Yeah, excellent. I still hold out hope that someday you'll write another Star Trek novel, but it's been quite a while, right?
I would do that. I would do that. It's how can I remain positive in the situation?
I'm still crossing my fingers for more Stargazer books because I love the Stargazer series.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I would love to do it. So, if anybody in with a say so is listening, I would.
Yeah, did you hear that?
Awesome.
Everyone that's responsible for Star Trek novels. Yeah. So anyway,
and then listeners, I just wanted to point out. So Michael and I met about 2 years ago in Albany, New York, and we had an interview. We got to sit down and we talked for a little while. And
that's right.
If you guys want to listen to that interview, we do talk quite a bit about his Star Trek writing career. It was over when I was on Trek FM, and I did a kind of a guest correspondent for Literary Trek's episode number 254. So we had about a 45-minute interview or so where we just discussed your work and your career, and it was a really good interview, and it's a lot of fun. So awesome. And Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a great chance to talk with you, and if you do listen to if you do watch the episode, and if you want to, I'll message you my email address. If you want to, and you record some thoughts on the episode, I will insert them into this one. I am editing it tomorrow, and it will be released Tuesday morning first thing. So if you can get it to me by sometime in tomorrow afternoon or whatever, at the latest, I can sneak it in. And if you want to get some thoughts in and record them, and just send me an MP3.
I'll see if I can. I also teach,
mm-hmm.
and you'll be tickled to hear that one of the subjects I'm teaching remotely. I'm teaching remotely in the New York City system. Is gym.
Oh, nice.
So chew on that for a while.
Interesting.
Do sit-ups.
Yeah.
Do sit-ups.
Yeah.
Right? I just hope I don't pull anything.
But yeah, again, it's been wonderful having you here. I've loved a lot of your novels. Haven't read them all yet, but yeah, really appreciate all the work you did. Okay, so let's see. Brandon, where can people find you when you're trying to decide whether you want to have sex with or murder someone on the holodeck?
Well, I'm doing that right now.
Oh, jeez.
But
no.
Deciding or the act?
You can find me on Twitter at Brandon Matella, and that's where I tweet. And unfortunately, there's a lot of negative Trump tweets right now, so I think I'm losing a few followers pretty quickly right now, but that's okay. You can find me...
We'll deal.
We'll deal. You can find me here on the network with a show called Franchise Fatigue, where we talk all about movies, remakes, and sequels with my friend Zach Moore, and we're smack dab in the middle of our Planet of the Apes retrospective. And then you can also find me in my monthly Hitchcock podcast called Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast, where we cover all of the Grand Master's work. And our episode that released this month is Rope, which is one of my favorite Hitchcock films, so definitely check that one out.
All right. So, Chrissie, where can people find you when you're not thinking about philosophical and moral dilemmas all over the Star Trek universe?
Well, that's a rare moment. Right. So I'm on Twitter at the Goddess Livia. That's TheGoddessLivia. And there I tweet about Star Trek history and leftist politics. You can also follow my work in history by liking the webpage my fellow historian husband and I run. Jason, it's my husband, History with the Szilagys, which is at historywiththeszilagys.org, and that's spelled SZILAGYIS. And there you'll find our most recent projects, Historical Musings, which are blogs discussing historical context for current events, and Jay's doing essays on historical context of HBO's Lovecraft Country. We're a little bit behind because the new semester started, and getting everything virtual has been fun, as many people know. But we'll be playing catch up on that. And once you've become a patron of UFP, go over to the support our work and maybe become a patron of us too.
All right.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at TrekFan4747, where I tweet about nothing but Star Trek. And you can find me in our Facebook group, the Federation Council Chambers, where we talk about these episodes. Please leave us comments. We need more comments when we don't have John Tenuto on, because we got a lot for that one. But anyway, it's called the Federation Council Chambers. Please go ahead and find that and join. So thank you very much for tuning into Infinite Diversity. Thank you to our executive producers, Ken Tripp, Tony Robinson, and Zach Moore. Thank you to Zach Tripp for the wonderful theme music and Tony Robinson for the awesome show art. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, and please subscribe. If you want to reach out, you can find us on Twitter at UFP Earth, that's for the network, or our Twitter handle, IDIC Podcast, for this podcast. And as I mentioned, we have the Facebook group We have the Facebook group called Federation Council Chambers, where you can discuss all these episodes, or you can email us at infinitediversity@ufp.earth. So in the next episode, we'll be talking about the season finale of Lower Decks. Brandon, do we have that title yet?
No, I just checked my source, and it doesn't even show that there's an episode 10 coming out yet, so they haven't updated anything. So
okay, I predict that it'll be called Revenge of Badgie. Badgie will come back, and so all kinds of havoc on the ship that knows that Freeman is Mariner's mother, and there'll be a cliffhanger because we'll think everyone's dead. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe. So whatever that episode is, we'll talk about it next week, and until then, peace and long life.
This has been a production of MTMR Media Works.